see that my mic is working. I have pretty mic out because you are able to see me. So this big weekend was rather uneventful. Um, Me and the Queen Mother, I went and took her out for some took her out so that she could run around and get some errands done and everything. Um, I got a chance to get so I still got to get some more. I know I keep saying I still got to get some more podcasts up and running this week. So as you can see, so let me see here. So I still haven't picked out a theme for April. I think I am going to allow April to not have a theme, except for, like I said, the carryovers from all of the topics that I had to speak on over February and March for Black History Month, 28 days of Black feminism, as well as 31 days of global feminism. So one of the things I saw over the weekend, which I thought was very horrifying, and I plan on talking about it during one of my podcasts on the manosphere. So the manosphere is still ongoing. Still talking about the divest movement, um, which like I said, don't agree with, even though I understand some of their talking points. A lot of what you're hearing when you hear about black women divest or a divested black woman is a woman who is putting her own interests first. So many of them feel like we get sacrificed a lot on the altar of protecting black men. And I completely understand that. I think that I think we seem to forget that when it comes to the fight for human rights, for civil rights, that women are included in that fight. And many times, women are oftentimes, especially black women, um, neglected. And it's not right. It's not right that we do a lot of the work, but we also wind up being left out when it comes to um, and raise up there a little bit. So many times we do the work, but we oftentimes are left out when it comes to reaping the benefits of the fight that we're fighting. And we are fighting, it is a faith fight. Like we said, we just celebrated this week. We got our first. Um, I was looking at Saturday Night Live clips over the weekend. And one of the clips I got to see was the opening clip, the opening skit, and how they, of course, incorporated Miss Brown Jackson, her confirmation into their bit. And so they had her talking to famous Black history makers over the decades. And so, they brought out Harriet Tubman, but then they brought out Thurgood Marshall. And they had Thurgood Marshall ask, so since, I stepped down and since I had passed away, how many Supreme Court justices have there been? How many black Supreme Court justices? Maybe 20, 50, whatever, She said, oh, I'm the third. And so they managed to mention that in there. And I was glad they mentioned it because, like I said, we're fighting this fight And we need to, I stole a copy of a meme that talked about how many of the Supreme Court justices were white males. And I thought about it as I was looking at the speech that the one guy gave, and he talked about white Anglo-Saxon males, WASP, Protestant. So there was even a, religious and a religious, there was even a religious restriction, not restriction, but just understanding. And so that understanding ever said that kept out a whole lot of white males that were of different religious backgrounds. So one of the things that Kennedy was famous for was being the first Catholic to be sworn into the White House. So there's been history making there too. Thurgood Marshall, of course, was the first black man to be elected, um, confirmed as a Supreme Court justice, and Clarence Thomas being only the second. So Miss Brown Jackson is the third. And the meme gives the complete breakdown of how many of the justices have been male, have been black, and have been women. And it's an interesting one, and I may put it up for you guys to see sometime soon so that you can see it. Um, but I thought it was very interesting and very funny. So this will, um, let me see what else happened over there. So I discussed the bill. I was discussed Will Smith being banned for 10 years. It's still a bit of a shocker to me because I'm shocked, but I'm not shocked. So I said on one of the last podcasts that I just have a feeling that he's going to be made an example out of. And they did. So what do I mean when I say make an example? So oftentimes when a high profile or famous black man gets into trouble, or a black man, period, they don't have to be either of these things. Oftentimes they will receive a harsh punishment for what they did, and it is like it's to make an example. And I really honestly believe it's to make an example to other black people. It's really not meant to be an example to other white people, because very seldom do white people who are guilty of the same thing get that same punishment. And so, even though Will Smith has publicly spoken and said he'll accept whatever the Academy does, I'm not in I'm not in the music. I'm not a part of the Academy, so I have a right to have my opinion and say that I don't think it's right. Okay? Even though I even though I feel for Chris Rock, even though I understand even though I understand, that Will's behavior was inappropriate, um, I've seen less appropriate. In fact, I've been so desensitized to the stuff that they do on stage that I didn't even think what Will was doing was real. So I just think it's, something else that they went ahead and did this. But I think they're getting a lot of backlash for the whole make 'em an example attitude that seems to be aimed at a lot of black men. So we'll see if this 10 years stick. From what they're saying, he still has the ability to win an award and be nominated. So that part wasn't taken away from him. I also saw over the weekend. So it was a couple of things that I saw. Quite a few things that I saw. So I'm seeing where this black man was murdered by his white girlfriend. Now, I mentioned their colors because, once again, alluding to the manosphere, there have been a lot of black men using their profiles to bash black women, which, like I said before, one of my policies here at, yeah, this is going to be a day where I relax and talk to y'all. Um, so, one of my policies here at Adams Rib Media Ministries is that I do not follow any vlogs, any podcasts, any social media that bad mouths black women. If they don't have, I remember there for a while there was a guy named Tommy Sotomayor, and I have to say my girlfriends with the other blogs. Oh, so I call them my girlfriends because anybody who comes after a person who will badmouth their own women like that deserves for them women to come after. Yeah, I had to sit up for a minute because I don't want to fall asleep talking to you guys. I was getting too relaxed. So he every time he did a broadcast, he did nothing but say really negative things about black women. Now, let me say this. I'm not going to act like I get along with every black woman and that there are black women out there that don't do things that, upset me or whatever. But I also am a black woman and I know the number of times that I as a black woman was unjustly or unfairly accused of being angry when I wasn't angry because I call it that racial gaslighting that seems to be aimed at every black woman. If someone treats you unfairly or doesn't act right by you and you defend yourself, all of a sudden you're angry or combative or difficult. If you decide to defend yourself against any unjust treatment or check anyone for not doing right by you, don't be particular about how you want your sandwich made or anything like that. It's just like I said, comedian D.L. Hughley had a saying that black women are always going to be too loud for those that don't intend to listen to you. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think that's how a lot of men are, pretty much with all women. But when you insert, and this is not an all lives matter thing, this is just me giving you the intersect. So anything that white women go through, black women either have already gone through it. Black women have either already gone through it, right? Or if we go through it, it's just made that much worse. And that, it's just the fact that we're black makes it, you know, mm, it's not enough to make me wish I were white. So, because the only thing wrong with being black is racism. The only thing wrong with being black is racism. We're not inferior. We're not made of inferior goods. We are not, we are not, there's nothing inferior about us. I also watched and I talked about it Friday night. So there is a channel that has a three-part interview with Jane Elliott. So if you don't know already, Jane Elliott is the white teacher that developed a test called the brown eye blue eye test. And it is basically to teach white people about racism, or to teach white people how it feels to endure racism, how to go around for a day and find out what it's like to suffer injustice because of something that you can't control. So the blue eye group is usually the group that winds up finding out what it is like to suffer the type of indignities that they're suffering. And she was being interviewed by a black man, and her opinions about racism and sexism were so on point, and it was so touching. She talked about, nearing the quote end of her life, and she talked about having a husband that she looked forward to seeing again. So, you know, I'm like, think about having left here and walked in your purpose that many years and having poured out. If she didn't do nothing else, and she said she's a teacher, so that means she's still teaching. Think about having walked this earth and poured out and made changes, radical changes, with just one test, with just one test, with just one thing. Yeah, I'm back laying down again. With just one test to be able, if she didn't do anything else but the brown eye, blue eye test, to teach about racism. And the one that they showed, there was one where she did over in Britain. So she got a request to come to Britain and to England and do the test. And a British black woman said, it is here. It's more subtle. It's more subtle. It's the waiter or waitress that doesn't come back right away, or waits on the person after you while they almost ignore you, which we experience here. It's the person that follows you around the store. A lot of the stuff that this black lady talked about is stuff that we go through here. Okay, that stuff that we go through here. So it was just really interesting. Like, I looked at that clip, but then I looked at another clip where Friday night, while I was playing music or whatever, playing music and doing eclectic music geek podcast. That's where I saw the 3-part interview, and it was so interesting to listen to her um, speak with so much passion, that you could tell that she really believes in what she's doing. And it's been criticized by people, but I think the only way that some people learn things is by it being in your face like that. She could sit there and if you could just sit there with a bunch of white people and go, okay, this is what racism is, without realizing the systematic things that have been in place. And not only that, but um, realizing how subtle the dance of sexism and racism are. We talk about grooming when it comes to people who molest kids, but you can be groomed and not be a molester. Okay, you can have somebody grooming you, um, which is going to bring me to my third topic. So I have said repeatedly, there's an um, mm, advice giver online online personality, and his name is Kevin Samuels. So I was looking at um, Tanya TKO, um, who also has a YouTube channel, and she was talking about the fact that Kevin Samuels told this woman he was advising um, to, it was, the title of it was "Don't Believe Your Daughter." So then he was basically saying, if your daughter, if your daughter comes to you and tells you, I think it's so interesting when it comes to the world of sexual assault, how many men are just obsessed with false accusations to the point where they're telling people, well, don't believe her if she tells you that. What do you do? And I guess he was calling himself trying to explain why dating a single mother is a risk, and he fell short. And one of the reasons he fell short was he made the remark, or he did a telecast and said to the woman, now you have your kids, your mom, and what if your kids get to be older and your daughter approaches you and tells you that her stepfather molested her? So he says this. I know I'm kind of like thinking about this in my brain, wrapping my mind around the fact that somebody would tell somebody something so irresponsible. Um, you have to be careful, because I do believe that there are several religious groups, and I've said this before. I think that there are religious principalities, you know, that are in place. The Word of God says that we battle not against flesh and blood, but against evil principalities in high places. So when we're praying, we're not just praying about people. Satan uses people, Satan operates through people, wherever he can. If you have any unhealed, undelivered places in your life, you could be used to operate against someone else. Okay, so I heard somebody once. I told this lady, I said, "Be out my face, Satan," and she said, mm. So it's just something else. But when I heard this, I was like, and so she showed the clip, and then she showed the clip of him kind of saying to this woman, now, he presented the scenario of the woman having a child before marriage and then them getting married and having two more kids, we'll say. And so he said, now, what are if your child, your child that isn't his, which as though people don't molest kids that are theirs biologically, like I'm like, you can barely it's at a point you can barely trust their biological father. So it isn't only stepfathers that molest or abuse their children. But I remember watching Dr. Phil, and he talked about, mothers who cohabitate. And he said a child that has a mother that cohabitates, their chances of being abused in any kind of way at all goes up 100% at least. So the numbers for kids, with the whole cohabitating thing, you have to really watch when they live with a boyfriend and different other stuff, because some men do have the attitude that it's not their kid. Um, but what got me with this whole thing is that I'm like, I cannot believe that somebody is out here on the He calls himself a relationship expert. Why would you say that when psychologies and people with psychologists and psychiatrists and mental health experts and every expert around, including pediatricians, has been saying believe your kid until you have a reason not to believe your kid. Do children lie about being molested? The numbers for that are very, very small. The numbers for grown women who falsely report rape are very small, 2 to 8%. Out of out of um, out of women who actually report, sexual assault is one of the most underreported crimes there is. Very seldom do people report. And out of the people who have reported, 90 some percent of men that are guilty walk away free. 98% of rapists never even see the inside of a courtroom. So when you have these guys, like I said, men seem to be obsessed with being falsely accused. And I'm like, for there to be an actual 2 to 8%, and it's about the same for other crimes, which means, other, like if there are people who have had their houses broken into, people who have been pickpocketed, people who have been robbed at gunpoint, the chance of them lying about that happening to them is between 2 to 8%. And think about the fact that the majority of people who are guilty of rape are walking around free now. Okay? So that is what I'm saying. I'm like, no. I'm like, don't believe your children. Don't, it seems like, and the thing of it is that night I was looking at, TikTok, and I was seeing all these different people who had told their moms, and their moms didn't believe. Imagine being an adult, a grown adult. These were adults that were talking about this. And they were talking about, the question was, well, what is something that your mother said to you and it stayed with you as an adult? And I can't tell you the number of people who came forward saying that they were a victim of molestation and weren't believed. So it was scary. Believe your kids. Do not let anybody, including a pastor, tell you to not believe your child. Believe your child until you have a reason not to. And there are usually valid reasons why they would lie. Okay, it's not good for them to lie. They shouldn't lie, but sometimes they do. So believe them until you have a reason not to believe them. Also, this week, I am going to be teaching on this Friday. I'm going to be talking about the Holy Spirit and his function in the life of the believer. I'm also going to talk about, so that's going to be part of salvation, is for me to talk about the Holy Spirit and the ways that he leads and guides us into all truth, not into all fiction. So you have to you have to excuse me. That's one of the reasons why I don't like laying across here, because I start. So this week I will be talking about salvation, but I'll be talking about the Holy Spirit. I also am going to revive talking about supernatural warfare. Now, this coming weekend, I think so. So this coming Friday will also be a special edition of Eclectic Music Geek. My Eclectic Music Geek will be dedicated to this Sunday's verses. So if you didn't know, this Sunday Verses will be hosting a showdown between Mary, sisters Erica Campbell, or Erica and Tina Campbell, against BB and CC Winans. So it'll be a special one because it'll be, gospel music and, gospel artists. Um, After that, I will be doing, I will be doing. So basically, what you're going to get is Eclectic Music Geek Podcast 3 Fridays in a row, because in keeping with my schedule, I'm going to do an Eclectic Music Geek podcast following Friday after this Friday, my regular scheduled one, and I will be discussing Black people in country music. So the reason why I'm doing that is because I was looking at um, the American song. I was looking at American Idol last night. So I've been watching. So on Sunday, I'll watch American Idol. On Monday, I will watch American Song Contest. So on American Idol, there's a young man that inspired this topic. Okay, Jimmy Allen is his name. So, um, you've been hearing about Little Nas X and his entry into country hip hop. And, I thank Billy Ray Cyrus for his willingness to be open to working with Little Nas X and lending his um, country music has not always gotten a good rap when it comes to welcoming minorities. Um, but he is not the only black country artist. Many of you remember back to the days of Charlie Pride. So, Charlie Pride. And so many people, you would think, um, Charlie Pride, I think, back in the day, was one of the only brothers in country music. And I remember there being a Martin Lawrence doing a show where he went to work for a country station, and he started playing Charlie Pride. So Charlie Pride, let me see. I remember Charlie Pride having "Kiss an Angel Good Morning." I think that was him. So let me see here. So let me see some of his more popular songs. Yeah, "Kiss an Angel Good Morning." Is anybody going? hmm, Is anybody going to San Antone? Does my ring hurt your finger? Kalanga. Mountain of Love. So I only remember Kiss an Angel Good Morning because that was one of the ones that crossed over. But a lot of black people have worked in country music, believe it or not. And you will be surprised at the black people. I remember back when Tina Turner had Private Dancer out. When a person is hot property, people will find the oldest stuff to bring up and put before you. So we were sitting there, me and my mom was laughing because somebody came out, Tina Turner Goes Country, and it was a complete album of Tina Turner hits. So I was listening to Jimmy Allen, and he was very talented brother. I know there are a lot of black people. Country music probably has more black people that listen to it than what they think. Um, but I think there'll probably be more now that there is becoming, because there's a lot of black there's starting to be a lot of black representation. So if I don't know how many of you remember a group called Hootie and the Blowfish in the 90s. Well, their lead singer Darius Rucker has gone country, so he's doing country. Um, Very talented young man, very awesome voice, very talented. So, and their numbers are growing from what I've seen on American Idol, because there was a young black man on American Idol that was saying how much Jimmy Allen was a inspiration to him. So I'm kind of late to the party on Jimmy Allen, so I had to look up his information to give it to you. Many of you may have even heard of him before me, but but country music's numbers amongst black artists are growing. So I have 2 weeks to look up everybody who's ever done country. And so on American Idol last night they were talking about it, and so Lionel Richie, and I was like, that's right, but Lionel Richie has done some country themed songs. And so he wrote a song once he once he went solo from the Commodores. He wrote a few songs for Kenny Rogers. So Lionel Richie, has had a country presence there for a minute too. So the theme for this show, the show the week after the verses, will be African Americans in country music, and I will be looking up African Americans in country music, and I will be playing their stuff for you. So today's Monday afternoon quarterback is going to be a little short. um, but so that means Friday's live is going to be a little longer. It's going to be a little bit longer anyway because I'm going to be teaching. Um, I still am going to try my level best to post up these to my blogs on WordPress so that anybody who isn't able to tune in while I'm talking right now will see this later on. So, but like I said, it's been a lot. It's just been really weird lately. But like I said before, please always, if your kids are telling you um, that someone has done something to them, believe them. At least believe them until you have a reason not to. And even if you find out that they may not have been truthful, try to have them see somebody to find out why they would tell a lie like that one, and explain and make sure that they have the understanding that lies like that cannot be cannot be a thing because they ruin people's lives, because it's the type of thing that sticks with you. There was a man on Steve Wilkos, which there's usually that, they took the lie detector and found out he was telling the truth about not having ever touched any kids. And so, like Steve Wilkos says, once a lie like that gets next to you, it's like even when you are proven to not be guilty, that shadow can overhang on you for a long time. But I would rather take the chance of an adult having to be watched a little more carefully than take the chance on a kid being hurt. And so watch out for these religious groups, and I'm going to talk about those this week and address, them under religion's place in the manosphere. So, you guys have a good week. Enjoy your week. Enjoy your little ones. Enjoy your work. Those of you who have jobs, enjoy your work. Those of you that are entrepreneurs, enjoy the blessing of being able to have something of your own. Um, Please subscribe wherever you are, to my channel and everything. Like I said, my goal is to eventually be doing Adams Red Media ministry work and not have to deal with a regular job. for one thing, not having to do with a regular job for those of us that are content creators and influencers. It's not about being lazy or anything like that. But if you look at how much work, because I'm about to use my technology, I went and got one of my computers from my mother that I had gave her a few years ago, and I'm trying to get it together so that I can do a little bit more to increase my borders. So once I once you look at the work that goes into creating videos, especially for YouTube, that's a lot. And I mean, a lot of work goes into it, a lot of research goes into the topics and everything. So, and the ability to make money doing it, the ability to be able to do it full time and not have to worry about your work schedule and not have to do all kind of stuff like people have to do. It's just a lot. So, pray for those of us that are, first of all, the content pretty much writes itself. I haven't had to go nowhere and look up nothing or pay nobody to give me content because, to be perfectly honest with you, all you have to do is be alive for more than 5 minutes and the content will give itself to you. So I'm going to get off here. I love you all. You guys have a good one and enjoy the rest of your day.